Temple of All Religions started to be built in 1994 by a very unique person, Ildar Khanov, who lived between 1940 and 2013. He was a famous artist, architect, sculptor, and even a healer and spiritual guide for a small congregation of his followers. The temple was built on his ancestral home place in a little village Old Arkhchino, 20 kilometers from Kazan, which is located right along the railway Moscow-Kazan. He was not a rich person. Artists in the Soviet time usually were poor people, but the scale of the construction is amazing. It is about a dozen different buildings united under the same single roof, which consist of many turrets, spires, and domes. It looks like a cinema decoration for a medieval fairy tale. The idea of the temple was to demonstrate the single source of all religions and to show that the plurality of religions is not the problem, but a very beauty of the world. Ildar Khanov, in spite of being famous as a healer, died in 2013 from cancer, and after his death, problems with his unusual property began. He had a foreman, Mansur Zinnatov, who helped him with construction. The latter had a quarrel with Ildar Khanov's brother Ilgiz. The quarrel ended up in 2017 when, for some unknown reason, the temple went on fire and Mansur Zinnatov was found dead. Now the brother of the founder, Ilgiz Khanov, is the only owner of the unique building. His interests lie in the field of Orthodox icon painting, but at the same time he is a yoga teacher and a healer like his demised brother. Usually I like to bring my guests to this temple, and it is an interesting pattern in their attitude. If I take their pious religious guests, they may look at it in a disgust. But this is not the case with other guests. I would like to put this question to my colleague, Dr. Begi, who accompanied me to the temple in the last year. Why such a reaction?
Yes, thank you, dear Leila, first for accompanying me to the temple and for doing this interview. That the temple paradoxically invokes different reactions and sometimes negative reactions, if not often, could go back to the perception of its essence. Even at first glimpse, the temple looks like a Noah's Ark. The task of its strange architecture is to gather a reserve, a sample of everything spiritually precious for the sole purpose of recreation, for starting new, aiming for a new beginning. But a new beginning handed to man and not to God, despite all the religious invocations inside and outside of the building. And because recreation is the sole task of God, not man, pious visitors could find enough reason to be affected negatively by such vanity of the humankind to set its vision on recreation and imitating the hand of God.
Can you explain more what you mean by recreation?
When coming from Moscow by pure chance, I captured a glimpse of the temple from the passing train. At that time, the best guess I had was something between a New Age church or a Disneyland a la Tatar. But when you took me there, and again by chance we found a way to the cellar and backstage space with Ildar's Soviet-era masterpieces, my vision changed completely. What I perceived there was a serious attempt to give new birth to a world as modernist as the aesthetic sensibilities of Ildar's paintings that now belong to a bygone era. The whole idea of the temple is like a dream factory to reconstitute and continue certain aesthetic aspirations, certain cosmic sensibilities, a certain interrupted dream of the modern man and its world. And the architectural form embodies this dream of recreation best through a strange religious cubism. Not to have a mosque next to a church and next to a Buddhist temple and so on and so forth, but to disintegrate each form and let the elements enter into relations with each other freely, like in an assemblage in order to compose a new sacred force, which of course could be offensive if you are a member of one of these religions.
But you probably noticed that this place was not designed for worship, and it is used as a cultural space, a secular place.
Well, I find where one can call a secular and where one can call a sacred place in Russia a very complex question and a fluid situation, as we see that such attempts to regain a certain memory of mythological life can be undertaken in various forms and practices, like the distinct architecture here, but also with folk practices turning common places to sacred ones, which exists even today in Tatarstan too, as well as throughout Central Asia and Muslim Eurasia. For example, I find mazars and their healing attributes not very different than the spiritual healing that we witness Ildar's brother, Ilgiz, was practicing in the temple with his patients.
By the way, what do you think about the paintings of Ilgiz? Firstly, in comparison with the paintings of his brother, and secondly, as a mixture of different styles in one person's paintings. Some works are done in Orthodox iconography tradition, others you saw them were Iranian Qajar style portraits.
Yes, indeed, I find Ilgiz's Oriental paintings in particular fascinating. How in his portraits of, for example, Qajar-era courtly women, as you said, a feminine Orient is invoked as a symbolic mantra for the birth of a new Tatar world. How the Orient is tasked to play the role of a midwife or a female shaman or an aesthetic catalyst in order for the people to gain access to a level of mythological life on par with, if not even higher than the cosmic vision possible in Soviet modernist paintings. The very those paintings that are now abandoned and gathering dust in the cellars and backstage of the temple.
So do you agree with Ilgiz's vision that referring to the Orient can now bring about a new mythological order and to reconnect Tatars with their past when they were part of the Muslim world, including Iranian culture?
Well, despite my enthusiasm for such an idea, my answer is not simply. As Gilles Deleuze says, people can't simply will mythological life. So once mythology disappears and is no longer viable, we can do no more than creating art, literature, architecture, etc. in its lieu and through various figures and tropes. And there is no guarantee these attempts will not fail. For example, here, due to a violent family feud that burned parts of the temple and took the life of one of its founders. Now, with Ilgiz, the painter brother, this attempt at least partly relies on the mythological Orient, Persian, Egyptian, Tatar, etc., despite his previous work in restoration of Orthodox icons in various monasteries, as you said.
And you said we scholars also invented anthropology in lieu of mythological life. I would not have thought about anthropology this way.
Yes, we have invented science, but we have not done a better job necessarily than Ildar's genuine vision of a creative place and community, despite the story of its troubles.
I still hope there will be a better future for this place, and generations to come will appreciate the idea of the unity of all religions.
Me too, I hope so too. And particularly, I like to see more of Ildar's paintings, not behind the walls, but put in the main halls for public exhibit.
Sure, that would be great.
Thank you, dear Leila.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.